Charlie Munger didn't burst onto the world stage with brilliance or lightning-fast intellect. He was an ordinary man who developed one extraordinary habit, a way of thinking so deceptively simple most people overlook it. Yet that single shift in how he processed the world would make him one of the most respected minds in business history, the quiet architect behind Berkshire Hathaway and the man Warren Buffett trusted more than anyone else. Munger's thinking habit didn't just change his finances. It changed his life, and his worldview. What if success isn't about luck or talent, but about how you think? In a world addicted to noise, complexity, and urgency, could the ultimate edge simply be clarity? Charlie's story begins with that question. His breakthrough didn't come from a sudden discovery, it came from frustration. He saw that most people don't fail because they know too little, they fail because they don't think deeply enough. They react. They borrow opinions. They confuse confidence with insight. Munger's great rebellion was against this kind of mental laziness. When Warren Buffett first met him in the 1950s, he sensed something unusual. Charlie didn't fire off quick answers or fill silence with words. He paused. He inverted problems, looked at them backward, then smiled at their absurdity. His mind advanced slowly but precisely, like a chess grandmaster who already knows how the game ends. Buffett later said, "I'm a better investor because of Charlie, he's a better person because of me." One brought optimism, the other, razor-sharp rationality. Together they forged balance. That balance had deep roots. Munger was shaped by the Great Depression, a time when even intelligent families watched their fortunes crumble. He studied the wreckage not with judgment, but with curiosity. Why did smart people make catastrophic mistakes? Why did entire societies repeat failure under the banner of progress? The answer revealed itself layer by layer as he devoured books on psychology, mathematics, history, and economics. Human nature doesn't change, only the stage and costumes do. If he could learn to step back from emotion and see clearly when others couldn't, he believed he could avoid most disasters in life. That belief became his obsession. Munger began collecting mental models, small representations of how reality works. Physics explained cause and effect. Biology taught adaptation. Psychology exposed bias and self-deception. Economics wove them all together. A journalist once asked how he learned to think that way. His answer was pure Munger. "I never allow myself to hold an opinion on anything unless I know the other side's argument better than they do." It wasn't arrogance, it was quality control for thought. This was the habit that changed everything. He refused to think in straight lines. Instead, he built mental cross-connections, linking ideas until they either reinforced or destroyed one another. Knowledge, to him, was a web, not a ladder. He called it worldly wisdom, and it made him almost impossible to fool. When that habit combined with patience, it created a new kind of genius, quiet, unsentimental, and nearly immune to panic. Munger never chased trends. He waited for clarity, then acted decisively. In the 1960s, Buffett was still buying any company that looked undervalued on paper. Munger challenged him to evolve. Why buy average businesses just because they're cheap? He asked, when great businesses can compound wealth infinitely faster. The question sounded obvious, yet almost no one lived by it. Munger understood that greed blinds intelligence. Cheap stocks tempt investors into endless activity. But great businesses, those with durability, pricing, power, and loyalty, let compounding do the work. Once trust replaces prediction, time itself becomes your ally. That shift from chasing bargains to owning greatness redefined Buffett's career and reshaped Berkshire Hathaway. During manic bull markets, Berkshire looked boring. During crashes, it looked brilliant. That was no coincidence. The philosophy was designed to survive what emotion could not. Nothing proved it better than the dot-com boom. As investors threw money at internet startups with no profits, Munger compared the rush to people running into a burning building for fear of missing the party. When the flames finally consumed those illusions, Berkshire stood untouched. Munger's thinking habit had built a firewall against hysteria. Yet his logic extended far beyond investing. Privately, he gave the same advice for living. You don't have to be brilliant, just avoid stupidity. It sounded sarcastic, but it was deeply scientific. Success, he believed, is mostly about subtraction. Avoid envy, hubris, debt, and arrogance, and life will take care of itself. He spent decades practicing inversion, solving problems by running them backward. Instead of asking, "How do I succeed?" he asked, "How do people fail?" Then he built his life around eliminating those causes. That mindset made him resilient through tragedy. He lost a child to leukemia, faced financial hardship, and even partial blindness, but he never let emotion become a steering wheel. The core rule remained: reality, no matter how painful, is your friend. The first rule is you must not fool yourself, he said, and you are the easiest person to fool. That radical honesty defined his partnership with Buffett. Their trust worked because self-deception was not tolerated. Munger didn't flatter, he corrected. He called dumb ideas dumb, including his own. In a culture that celebrates confidence over clarity, that level of humility was revolutionary, and worth billions. Students who met him expecting secrets to wealth often left with something more valuable: philosophy. Spend less than you earn. Be patient. Avoid envy. Don't work for people you don't respect. They were unimpressed by their simplicity. Then, years later, they would realize that simplicity is the hardest habit to sustain. Behind those plain sentences was decades of pattern recognition. Munger had watched brilliant companies, governments, and investors collapse under the same psychological pressures: greed, euphoria, fear. It wasn't intelligence that doomed them, it was the refusal to think calmly when tension rose. He proved that again in 2008. When the global financial system shook itself apart, the world panicked. Munger and Buffett didn't flinch. They had studied this cycle too many times. Every bubble feels novel, every collapse feels terminal. Their method was simple but almost impossible to imitate under stress: focus only on the businesses strong enough to survive, ignore the noise, invest when fear creates mispricing. That discipline turned crisis into opportunity, just as it always had. To Munger, this wasn't bravery, it was preparation. You don't have to pee on an electric fence to learn not to do it, he quipped. History is full of lessons if you're willing to read them. He spent his life learning vicariously through other people's mistakes. Every mental model was a fence he didn't need to touch himself. He borrowed insight from everywhere: biology, physics, psychology, and stitched them into a worldview that valued harmony over hype. Each model was another lens, bringing depth to his vision. That's what worldly wisdom really means: the compounding of understanding. Even in humor, Munger's clarity cut deep. He called day trading the financial equivalent of standing at a slot machine, hoping your IQ beats the algorithm. He joked that patience is the art of sitting on your hands until everyone else goes crazy. But beneath the wit was gravitas, the discipline to prefer truth over comfort. The great lesson of life, he once said, is to get rid of your stupidities. Within Berkshire's partnership, his role was the surgeon of realism. Buffett brought energy and warmth, Munger applied acid logic. Together they discovered that excellence isn't about predicting the future, it's about avoiding unforced errors today. Buffett admitted, "It took Charlie to teach me that great businesses don't require genius, just good judgment and the absence of stupidity." Over 6 decades, that philosophy became Berkshire's cultural DNA. While most corporations forecast endlessly, Buffett and Munger planned for uncertainty. They created a system where doing nothing was often the most intelligent move. Patience replaced timing, preparation replaced prediction. That same temperament defined their personal lives. They ignored the social trophies of wealth, status games, lavish spending, noise. Munger wanted a seamless web of deserved trust, a life where integrity compounds like capital. Rationality wasn't separate from character, it was character. Each time you act rationally under pressure, you strengthen trust, first with yourself, then with others. He despised envy, calling it a really stupid sin: it hurts you and doesn't bother anyone else. He warned against resentment: if you can't change something, get over it. He treated anger as a design flaw rather than a personality trait. That thinking shaped the way he interacted, with friends, with business partners, even with the next generation. Clarity made him kind because confusion breeds cruelty. He valued understanding over judgment, laughter over pride. In boardrooms, his blunt logic could silence arguments in seconds. On stage, he turned decades of experience into aphorisms that hit with surgical force. "The world isn't driven by greed," he said once. "It's driven by envy." 6 words that explained bubbles, scandals, and social media better than volumes of analysis. Charlie Munger passed away in 2023, just weeks before turning 100. But by then, he'd transcended the category of investor. He had become something rarer, a standard for how to think clearly in a murky world. The legacy he leaves behind isn't a list of stock picks or financial ratios. It's a demonstration that clarity compounds just like capital. The value of thinking right, once learned, multiplies across decades. His edge was never raw intellect. It was courage, the courage to remain logical in an illogical age. That habit of thought, the steady pulse of reason through decades of mania, was his real masterpiece. Long after market cycles fade and Berkshire's holdings evolve, Munger's discipline will outlive them all. Because it rests on something timeless: clarity over confusion, patience over speed, reason over emotion. Take a simple idea, he said, and take it seriously. For him, that idea was rationality itself. It built an empire, refined a generation of investors, and transformed a life that might otherwise have been ordinary. And maybe that's the most enduring lesson of all. The thinking habit that changed Charlie Munger's life could change ours too, if we have the patience to learn as he did, one rational decision at a time.